Another. Okay. It is 6:37 and I'm calling to order the City of Sandy Planning Commission meeting. This is Monday evening, March 28, 2022. We will be, and this is a Zoom meeting for the record. And we'll start with a roll call.
Commissioner Wegener,
Here.
Commissioner Poulin,
Here.
Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Commissioner McLean Wenzel,
Here.
Commissioner Hook, Commissioner Mayton,
Present.
and Chairman Crosby.
Here. All right. We had in the packets the minutes from January 24, 2022. Any corrections, changes? I know I saw one. Did you?
Yeah, I think I mentioned. Just a second.
There was a duplication of,
It's a January 24th.
okay. Yeah, I caught on. Yes, the chair and vice chair appointments. There was some double duplication. The second paragraph is a duplication of sort of the first one. And my suggestion, actually, I would have us add one thing. In that first paragraph, it says Commissioner Lee nominated Commissioner Mayton for either position. And that was kind of left in the air. I don't know if that was a motion. It didn't have a second, so it kind of died. And then the second paragraph is actually the most accurate. It just doesn't mention that Commissioner Lee nominated Commissioner Mayton for either position. If that could be put into there to make it accurate, and with an addition of something about the it was not seconded. Although I can't remember, Commissioner Lee, if you actually said the words "I move to nominate," or if you just say "I nominate," and I don't know how that works or how it did work. Can you remember?
I don't remember. I don't have paragraphs in my copy. My page 5 is just one full paragraph.
Under 3.2.
Chair, I remember nominating you and Hollis, and then Commissioner Lee stating I was going to nominate Chris for either, or Commissioner Mayton for either position. I don't think it was an actual motion. I think it was part of our discussion.
Okay.
I'll agree with that.
So are we comfortable with just going with that second paragraph? Starts with Commissioner Mayton nominating Chair Crosby as chair, Commissioner McLean Wenzel as vice chair. Then it was seconded. And the vote is put there. We okay with that? So we'll just strike that first paragraph?
On the bottom of page 1.
Correct, on the
Okay.
bottom of page 1.
Yeah, other unless we're required to reflect the commentary made during the discussion. That would be the only thing I would add, is if we're required to put that, we should leave that sentence in the second, put it in the second
Yeah,
Sure.
because it's recorded,
part of the record.
actually have the motions and the substance, so you don't actually have to you don't actually legally have to have the conversation in there.
Okay.
I'm restricting it.
Okay. move faster, we're just gonna go with that. Did you understand that, Kelly?
So I'm basically just striking that first paragraph
Anything else that,
in 3.2, right?
correct?
Okay.
Any other corrections anybody saw? Okay. So if there are no further corrections, the minutes are approved as distributed. Now we'll give opportunity, though I don't see anybody here, for any just comments from the community. Anybody wishing to speak to the planning commission tonight on a matter that is not on tonight's agenda. Now is the opportunity, and if you're on Zoom, we ask that you click the raise hand button and then wait to be recognized. If you're here by telephone, dial *9. That will effectively raise your hand and then wait to be recognized. So this is any general comments to the planning commission from the public.
We do have one person in attendance, but I do not see a hand raised.
Okay. All right. Seeing nothing, hearing nothing, we'll move on to the director's report, which you all read. I thank you for that, Kelly. Any further elaborations that you have or any commissioner have any question?
I was gonna do, hold on, sorry, I'm just bringing it up.
Nope, that's fine.
So yeah, on the upcoming meetings, just so you know, the planning commission meeting on April 25th will include the long-awaited Parks Code amendments to chapter 1732 and 1786. You've seen these, I believe, last October, but we've made some pretty substantial changes to them again. And then we're going to be bringing them through. The other thing that night is actually the master plan that was adopted last year. There's a few little things that need to be modified because of the census numbers coming out with the population projections. And then also there was 1 or 2 errors that we've caught since we adopted it. So at the advice of the attorney's office, we're going to re-adopt the master plan. There's not a lot of changes, but there are a few pretty substantial ones that affect how we calculate parkland dedication requirements. And then
Parks master plan.
the Parks Master Plan. So the April 25th meeting will be all about parks. It will be the code adoption and the master plan readoption. You'll be giving recommendations for both of those to the city council, actually, not adopting anything. So there'll be both legislative hearings. And then on May 23rd, we'll likely have an annexation hearing for a recommendation. And then either on May 23rd or the 27th, we will likely have another subdivision. And there's a chance on one of those 2 meetings, we'll also have a large food cart complex that's being proposed by the gym. That would probably be the June meeting. If we have all the stuff and information complete by then. So starting in May and June, you'll be getting back to some quasi-judicial land use decisions before you.
Okay.
And other than that, I really didn't have anything else. The top of page 2 actually speaks to the Riffle food cart facility that I just mentioned.
Right. I saw.
And if you have any questions on anything else, just let me know, but that's all I was going to summarize.
Okay. Any general discussion for any planning commissioners tonight? Questions for Kelly or?
Oh, we have 2 hands raised. Commissioner Lee.
Yes, I wanted to check with you and see if you anticipate that the meeting will be in Zoom in April.
Yeah, so meetings going forward will be offered in both Zoom and in person. And that's with some new legislation that was passed beginning this January. Actually, we have to offer either some sort of virtual meeting. So it either has to be like Zoom or a similar platform, or at least people can call in on the phone. So because Zoom has worked so well for us, we'll continue to offer it via Zoom.
Oh, thanks. I'm having double knee replacement surgery a couple days before that, and I know I won't be coming down to the council chambers.
And I mean, you're free to continue to do them online as well. There's no pressure either way. So. Commissioner Mayton has his hand up too.
And I don't see the hands.
Oh, really?
No, maybe I should pull up the participants, that panel. Yes, I can see it when I pull that up. All right, Commissioner Mayton.
Chair, I just wanted to let you know, and the commission know, on May 23rd, I will not be in attendance. I'll be on a travel trip with the state, out of state. I'll be in Phoenix, and flying on the evening of the 23rd, actually. So I won't be even available to call in via Zoom. So I will be absent that day. I just want to give you fair warning.
Okay, that's the May meeting.
I will also be out of the country that day. I'm sorry, I should speak louder. What do you call me?
No, that's fine.
I'm having computer difficulties here. I will also be out of town that same meeting in May.
So there's two for sure.
So out of the other 4 people, is everybody going to be able to make that date or?
I am here. I'm not here in June. So you have
I'm here. in
3
June.
months, 3 months for warning.
Thanks.
Commissioners Wegener and Lee and Pullen, does May 23rd work for the 3 of you? I just want to make sure we have a quorum for that night.
Yes,
Yes, May 23rd works for me.
Okay, that was Pullen.
Kelly, did you hear me respond?
We did, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Did you get the others?
I heard there will be at least 4, and I don't know about Commissioner Hook. And then you're going to be gone on the June meeting, you said?
I will be gone in the June meeting. Sorry.
Which means I have 3 months. Actually, 2 meetings.
I'd like to be here for that one. That's a food court one. All right. Well, that'll end our discussion, our ad lib discussion. And we'll move to old business. And this is the Planning Commission bylaws. Kelly put together a good cover sheet to explain things. We looked at this in January. And after that meeting, a couple of us had some conversations and we decided to make a couple, I think one major area, and I'll show it to you in just a second, changes. And then I felt it'd be best to bring it back to the Planning Commission before it goes to City Council. So this is, as we looked at it in January, the area where we made the change is under advisory members, 2.16.060. The way it was written, it said, the original one, that the Planning Commission nominated advisors, and we've never done that. It's always been the City Council. So that's been changed to reflect that. So now it reads, the Planning Commission may recommend appointment of advisory members to the City Council, or the City Council may directly appoint advisory members at their pleasure. Advisory members are invited to attend all meetings to lend their expertise to the commission in an advisory capacity. And I believe that was the only place that we tweaked it, wasn't it, Kelly? Unless,
That was definitely the main,
yeah,
there might have been another word or two modified, but that was the only substantive thing that I remember.
So.
Oh, and I think we struck the last sentence in that section as well. Because of
Oh,
all the
yes.
concerns around if you attend one meeting and then the next meeting, we have all 7 commissioners, would one of them have to sit out? And it
Mhm.
just creates a very
Yeah, it was,
kind of a confusing mess.
yep. Okay, time to ask your questions. I hope you don't mind that we did a little behind the background to make the changes, but I felt it would be better to do it now than later. Commissioner Mate,
Chair, just for the record, I want to make sure that when this gets enacted, that it doesn't remove you from your position as chair because you've been there for more than 2 years and the new bylaw says that they can only stay for 2. So
I hadn't even thought of that. I assume not.
just checking.
I agree.
Because actually, when our motion tonight will be to send this on to city council. And then when they take it and approve it, yeah, assuming they will, then they've got to go back and make some changes in some other documents that state that we have to have our separate bylaws, which these are not.
I think one way to handle that potential issue is, if I might offer this as a potential solution, is if, so you just want to keep the chair position as is through this calendar year. So what I would suggest is when we propose it to city council, we just include in the ordinance that adopts this new code section a whereas or a recital, basically saying that this doesn't affect 2022 chair positions.
That have already been selected.
Correct. That were selected on January, and I'd put the date in there.
Mhm. So it'd just be like a caveat.
Yeah, it'd just be part of the ordinance adopting the code, the municipal code, and saying that the chair selections, I think we could do it that way. Our city attorney's on the line, so if you want to ask him for any better.
There he is.
And there he is. So I'm sorry, what are the options again? Oh, it looks like Commissioner Lee has a question as well.
Oh, I was just going to make a motion when we're ready, so go ahead.
I guess I lost track of the thread of the options.
The question was, when this bylaw gets enacted by city council, whatever that date becomes, will we have a problem with Chair Crosby because he'll be in that seat for longer than 2 years? And I think Kelly made the recommendation that we add a caveat to the submittal to city council that this does not include the nominations made in January of 2022.
Right. It would only affect that it would only affect nominations made after the date of adoption.
Okay.
Right. I think that's all you need to say. In fact, if that's in the record, you don't even need to put it in the bylaws themselves.
Chris, I just suggested putting it right in the ordinance or the staff report when I bring it to council, but
Yeah, I'd put it in the staff report. I don't think you want it in the ordinance.
fair enough.
Okay. I think Commissioner Lee, we can turn it over to you. Sound like you were ready.
Yes, I would move approval of the bylaws of the Planning Commission. Do you want me to refer to the chapter 216 of the Planning Commission?
That's good enough. And then it forwarded to city council. Is that what you said?
Yes, definitely.
Just need a-
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay, we have motion by Commissioner Lee, seconded by Commissioner Mayton to forward the draft of the bylaws discussion to city council with our recommendation that they approve it. Roll call vote.
Okay. Commissioner Wegener. Commissioner Pullen,
Agreed.
Commissioner McLean Wenzel,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Yes,
Commissioner Mayton,
Yes,
and Chairman Crosby.
Yes. All right. We have one public hearing tonight. And it is quasi judicial in nature. And we're going to do some chair shifting here. Because I've asked Commissioner Wenzel McLean to chair this. And so to make it totally official, she's going to take the chair of the chair. And we will discuss.
All right. So that's everything.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then this is everything printed out.
All right.
All right. Well, I've asked him to sit here and hold my hand. It's kind of hard to go after somebody who's done this for so many years, so. All right, so bear with me. Okay, I call this meeting to order. This is public hearing, land use file number 21-059 for Senate Bill 458 at 6:58. Okay. So first I'll call for any abstentions from the hearing body. Is there anyone who will be abstaining tonight? I don't see anyone. Next, I'll call for any conflicts of interest from the hearing body. Also no one. Okay, then I'll call for the staff report. Emily?
All right, I'm going to share my screen. So this is going to be pretty similar to the work session that we had on March 7th. Again, the Senate Bill 458 is a very specific process, so there's not a whole lot to have any discretion on. But I'm going to go over it again, and then we can discuss it, and then I'm going to summarize the discussion from last time. So the Senate Bill 58 code amendments include code modifications to 9 chapters. So the main goal is to amend the code in compliance with Senate Bill 458. But as we are opening up these chapters, we also included some housekeeping items, clear and objective language, and incorporation of plans because of all the limited land use development concerns that we've been having. A majority of the clear and objective modifications are in chapter 17-100. And then another thing to keep in mind is that the incorporation of the plans requires references to specific documents, such as the 2011 TSP. So when the TSP is updated, which is supposed to happen this year, the code will need to be updated again. So don't be alarmed if it comes back in a few months. And then the changes to 1734 through 1740, which are the residential chapters, are just purely housekeeping. And they're not, and clear and objective, and they're not in response to Senate Bill 458. So to kind of go over Senate Bill 458 again, it's a follow-up to House Bill 2001. House Bill 2001 required medium-sized cities to allow duplexes anywhere a single-family residence is permitted. Senate Bill 458 follows up on that and requires that any city or county that's subject to House Bill 2001, which includes Sandy, is required to adopt an expedited review process for middle housing land divisions. So in our case, that's just duplexes. So dividing a duplex into 2 lots. The expedited review process already exists within the Oregon state statutes. And it's essentially everything has to be done within 63 days instead of 120. There's also specific regulations regarding noticing and appeals and things like that. So it's a process that's already exists, and it's just going to be what's applied to Senate Bill 458 land divisions. So the primary intent of Senate Bill 458 is to enable the middle housing lots, so that's the lots with the duplexes, to be divided for individual sale and ownership. It does not affect the quantity or the density of the middle housing. So this is the example I showed last time. This was from Eugene, so it's showing a triplex. But you can see there's sort of a parent lot that includes all 3 dwellings, and then through Senate Bill 458, they would be allowed to divide it into the 3 separate lots so they could each be individually sold and owned. Just looking at how it could play out with duplexes, it could apply to detached duplexes or attached duplexes. It doesn't matter. And then each unit would be able to be individually sold and owned. And I think I noted this before, but I'll note it again, that it doesn't have to be a 50-50 split. There's no minimum lot size. It could be like a smaller unit on a smaller lot and a bigger unit on the bigger half of the lot. So going over what we discussed at the last work session, there are a few discretionary items that Senate Bill 458 allows. One is that the city can prohibit further division of the lots. And the general consensus was, yes, we want to do that. We can also require a notation on the final plat that indicates the approval was provided under Senate Bill 458. That just makes it clearer, so that staff recommended that, and the consensus was yes. And also, can we add that to the deed? Which, yeah, I think we can. And then requiring street frontage improvements or right-of-way dedication. And again, the answer, the consensus was yes. And typically those would be done prior to the land division complex or the middle housing land division stage anyway, so it likely won't come up. We talked about the application fees. So we have to set a fee that's based on what we think the true cost would be to process one of these applications, including a potential appeal. So we looked kind of a little closer at what the middle housing land division process would entail. And we think 2,500 would cover the estimated full cost. This is something we would probably review. I think we actually are required to review it each year. But we could certainly review it again if we find that it's taking more staff time or less or whatever. And then one suggestion that staff had recommended in chapter 17-100 was removing shared private drives and public access lanes from the code. And again, the consensus was yes, let's do that. So these are essentially substandard streets. Last time we talked about removing the requirement to publish a notice in the newspaper prior to a hearing, and got some mixed feedback, but general consensus of looking into publishing a shorter legal notice or just a general notice that referred the public to the city's webpage for upcoming hearings, rather than publishing a very long notice that takes more of staff's time and costs more money. And so that is something that we can do, since it's not required that we even publish a notice in the newspaper. We've been looking into just publishing a shorter standing ad, basically notice, once a month or so, that would just appear, on a certain Wednesday every month in the Sandy Post. And then we were also asked to look into whether we could require posting to the city's social media account. And then another discussion topic was whether you wanted to increase the noticing distances if we removed excluding street right-of-way. And the excluding street right-of-way was proposed to be removed because the title companies don't seem to be able to do that anyway. So it's just a 300-foot buffer or 500-foot buffer. But the consensus was to just remove the excluding street right-of-way and leave the distances as they are, which is really what's happening now anyway. And then the last two discussion topics we talked about on March 7th was requiring the elevation of all applications to the highest number procedure. So for example, if an applicant has a type 2 design review, a type 2 tree removal, and a type 3 special variance, then all of the reviews would be elevated to a type 3. And this is sort of in the code already, but it's not clear and objective. So we're just making it more clear and objective. Right now it's at the director's discretion. And the consensus for that was yes. And then the last thing was just sort of, to get feedback on the subdivision criteria. So we fairly significantly modified chapter 17-100 to be more clear and objective, and added a lot more specific, clear and objective subdivision criteria. So we wanted some feedback on, whether we missed anything, if there's something else that needed to be added. And it seemed like the general consensus, beginning of the month was that both, Planning Commission and Council would like to explore this further, but it would be a much bigger discussion. So next steps. So tonight you'll be making a recommendation to council of whether to forward, approval or denial, I guess, of the code amendments, or suggest edits or whatever. And then the city council hearings tentatively scheduled for May 2nd. The deadline to adopt these code changes is June 30th, 2022. If we have not adopted the Senate Bill 458 code changes by then we would just default to what already exists in the Oregon statutes in terms of the expedited land use review. So it would be ideal if we could adopt it before June 30th, 2022. But if we don't, then it will still happen anyway, essentially. So that is the end of the staff presentation, and I can answer any questions.
I was going to add one other thing, Emily.
Mhm.
There was some confusion at the last meeting, and we put it in the staff report regarding the House Bill 2001 adoption. When council, so this was in regards to detached versus attached duplexes. And we just want to make sure that everybody's very clear on what was adopted last year. What was adopted last year is to just leave the code as it was previously written. So at least since 2011, since I've worked here, we've always allowed detached duplexes. When House Bill 2001 was adopted, it was asked if you wanted to limit it to attached or detached. It was, I think, kind of split both at Planning Commission and City Council, but it was at the end when we adopted the ordinance, we decided to still allow for detached duplexes. That is just the same as the code's been written. So there was some confusion with one of the counselors at the work session saying that with House Bill 2001, we modified the code to now allow detached duplexes. That is not the case. They were already allowed. We just chose not to restrict them. So I just want to be very clear about that so that there's no confusion on what was actually adopted with House Bill 2001.
Okay. All right. Now's the time for public testimony. Okay. Public testimony for this hearing will be called in 3 groups. There's testimony in favor of the proposal, testimony opposed to the proposal, and neutral testimony, meaning that you're neither for nor against, but you have something you'd like us to hear. And I see we have 1 attendee. So if you're participating online, you can either click to raise your hand button, click the raise your hand button at the appropriate time, and we'll recognize you. If you're doing this by phone, you dial *9 to raise your hand. So does our attendee want to make any public testimony? Doesn't look like it.
No.
Oh, do I need to toggle?
No.
No, the
Okay.
hand's not raised. I can see.
All right. Okay,
Try to
so,
help you out there. Her hand's not raised.
okay. In that case, then do I go ahead and close the meeting so we can have our discussion?
We can do it either way. Either we can,
Okay.
you can go ahead and close it because there's no public, and we can talk to our attorney and we can talk to staff with it
Okay.
closed.
All right.
So
So I'll go ahead and close the public meeting
take
at,
a motion.
take a motion. I will take a motion to close the public meeting at 7:11.
I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All right.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thumbs?
Aye.
Thumbs? Okay. All right, great. Thank you. All right, so it was a big packet, 114 pages. So I'm going to assume that everybody's read it. I don't think you want to sit here and go line by line. So after talking with Jerry, we thought it would be best to just kind of ask people your basic questions or concerns, any basic questions or concerns that you have. As you read through it, was there anything missing? Any proposed changes in wording that you have before we pass it on to city council?
I'll get the ball going.
Okay.
The first comment is I wasn't sure what, I'm going to admit my ignorance. I wasn't sure what middle housing was. Even when during our work session, everybody was talking about middle housing and I had to look it up. And I don't know if I need to state here, Chris, that I did Google it, and I actually found a good definition, and it helped me to understand when we're talking, because it's in the code, we're using the word middle housing. And middle housing is kind of the area of housing between like a single family residence, and one example I read was like a high-rise apartment building. It's the area between them. And in the ordinance, ORS 197.758, which is referenced in the bill, it would include, this does not apply to Sandy overall, but it includes, I'm just sharing this what I learned. Duplexes, triplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, cottage clusters, and townhouses. So that's what middle housing is. That's what I learned. So we, because of the size of our city, we're only dealing with duplexes. So that was part of my education to myself. I did have a technical question, which really doesn't have to do with the content of the code, and this would be for our attorney, is why that we replace the word must with shall in place. What?
Yeah.
What's the from an attorney?
I know, so this may be more than you bargained for, but Legislative Council in Salem has a form and style manual, and for years, shall was the preferred verb. Some number of years ago, they for reasons, grammatical reasons that I don't pretend to understand, they decided must was a better verb in most instances than shall, and less officious, frankly. They're trying to make the statutes readable by most folks. So they started shifting to must instead of shall. And I think a lot of codes are picking up that same phrasing in order to ensure that the local codes accurately reflect state law. I don't think it may be a distinction without a difference in most cases, but that's the origin of that change. I think for these purposes, you can assume it's a distinction without a difference.
That's a good way of expressing it.
And if I can add, since I was the one that made those changes, our code actually references in the definition section shall. And everywhere in the code it says shall. So I think we modified a few musts to shall, but that's
Okay.
Chris just said, because it sounds like people are going the other way. But I think for now I'm going to go to shall, and then we can look at the whole code eventually if we want to. But
No,
If it's defined in your code, then that's what you should use.
okay. The other question I had, you have the actual one on page 60. I don't know if your page
Yep.
numbers.
They're
come up
each
there.
document. Tell me,
1736.
actually, if you go through
Oh,
that and you scroll down to
Okay.
60, so right there, get that right
Alright.
there. There you go, and you'll see 60 there.
Oh, okay. I got you.
If that makes sense. I think. There you go.
This is, it was page 60 of the report. It's section 1736.0s.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
17.36.00, page 60. What my eye caught is just a peculiar thing. The added sentence says, this zone is one of 4 zones allowed in a village as designated on the comprehensive plan map. And so my first thought was, okay, if this is one of 4, are the other 3 mentioned? I looked for the similar statement other places that would say this zone is one of 4. I'm just curious why that was there, and are the other 3 zones, do they reference that they are allowed in the village?
Let me pull up what you're looking at here. Emily, I don't know if you, I was gonna pull this up, but if you know off the top of your head.
I don't. I know that the existing code said this is one of 4 zones, but the sentence was a little confusing, so we just kind of edited it to make it less confusing. But yeah, village commercial would be another one, and then I don't actually know what the other 2 are. Probably parks.
No, it's R2 and R3
Oh,
because parks didn't exist in 1997 when the comp plan made village as a designation.
mhm.
I was just curious if it's even needed, if that sentence is needed.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Emily's correct. We were just trying to clarify the existing sentence and make it more clear and objective.
Well, it's just an observation. It's not another.
And Chris, are the intent sections really that key to get exactly right? I mean, you can't even use them as criterion, can you?
No, on a quasi judicial residential application, no, because the criteria are supposed to be clear and objective on their face. If you get one like a PUD that you are allowed to exercise some discretion, they might help you with interpreting code provisions. But if in most cases where you have a residential quasi judicial application, the purpose statement won't have any bearing on your review of that application. There is, I will say more, I don't know if this may be a better answer. There's good case law that says purpose statements are not criteria. They're not standards that you use to do review an application.
Well, I mean, that was just an observation. I just saw that, wondered about the other 3. My other question was on page 75, and I will try and 75 D2.
Oh, I had a question about it too.
Oh, the proposed subdivision, this is approval criteria. The approved subdivision meets the requirements of the Bornstead Village overlay or other specific area plans as required. So the subdivision has to meet the requirements of Bornstead Village overlay, even if it's outside of the overlay?
What chapter number is that?
It's page 75 in the staff report,
17140.
17140. And the underlined blue, is that just reworded of existing?
I think it's new text.
New text.
Is that correct, Emily?
Yeah, blue is new text.
If it's blue is new text in that question, my question before on the village commercial, that was a new sentence, not
It was a new sentence modifying an old sentence.
oh,
So we just struck one sentence and
Okay.
replaced it with the new
I
blue
didn't see
sentence.
the struggle. Anyway, so this is new text. That's my question was,
Yeah, I think it needs a clarifier in there if applicable. Or if if located within the Bornstead Village overlay or a specific area overlay. Is that what you're kind of asking?
Yeah,
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 Yeah.
it makes it sound like no matter where the
Yeah, I
subdivision
agree.
is, it has to meet those requirements.
I think I wrote that sentence, so you can blame me. Okay. Did you make note of that, Emily? I'm trying to.
Yeah, and I also realized it should say partition, not subdivision, right?
Right.
And then I'll shut up with just one more comment, going back to the thing on middle housing. Because our code, even in the definition section, talks about a middle housing land division, would it behoove us to have a definition of middle housing in the definitions? Or is it more universal than understanding than my mind was grabbing?
Is there a definition added for that in the definitions chapter? I thought we did add something.
There is in the ORS 197-758. And all it says is middle housing means those things that I mentioned. So our definition could just say middle housing means duplexes, I suppose.
Emily, Kelly, I think that's right. Isn't it the only form of middle housing in Sandy, at least recognized in the code, is duplexes, right? That's the only one the middle housing land division provisions would apply to.
Yeah, that's the only one we had to allow under House Bill 2001.
Yeah, we define middle housing land division in this new chapter section, but I don't know if we define what middle housing is. Is that what you're at? Is that
I
what you're
didn't
asking?
find it, which is why I went to Mr. Google. And
I think it would be a good idea. I don't think it would be very hard to add something. We already had that chapter open, so it'd just be adding another definition.
If you were ever to have a triplex, then would you have to do a significant change if you got such an application?
are you talking about for a middle housing lands?
Right, say 5 years down the road, somebody wants to build a triplex.
Until we're 25,000 people, at least under existing legislation, we wouldn't allow it unless we decide to revise the code in the future to allow lots to be split into 3.
But you could still build a triplex.
If the zoning's correct,
just
you could,
on
yeah.
on a lot.
On a one lot of record, yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, once we hit 25,000 people, a lot of this is going to be all modified again. So, but hopefully I won't be working here anymore.
And I think the other difference is that the middle housing land division, the focus is on the land division, and you could, if you build a duplex, you can split it down the shared wall between the I guess you guys have unattached duplexes too, but the land division aspects would not apply to a triplex if you define middle housing to be duplexes. You could still build your triplex, but it would just be on one lot.
Correct. Yeah, I think that's what Chairman Crosby was saying. Yeah.
Yep.
Those are all my comments. I know Commissioner Mayton has got a list.
All right. Then we'll recognize Commissioner Mayton.
I do not. I have, I was just gonna say, I think I found a bunch of grammatical errors as I read it, and I stopped. And that's only because of my daytime job. I review legislative documents. So it's insignificant, nothing substantive at all. I'm not as versed as you are, Chairman, on that. What I read, I agreed with. I just saw things that we could change grammatically to make it more, I guess, accurate. And I do not have the time to go through that. I can send an email if you're looking for those plural changes that I've made. I can send that to staff, absolutely. There's like 3,000 of them, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think we're interested in 3,000 of them.
I didn't think you were. That's why I was putting it out there.
Do you have an example of like one that came up a lot?
Yeah, I do. Hang on one sec. Let me pull it back up. So I have listed, all of mine are highlighted for the and or button. And or is not grammatically correct in a legal document. You wouldn't use that. You would use and or, not and or, either one. That happens quite often. And then there's a lot of just noun phrases that need determiners before it grammatically, like the or and, which, you know, for an easier read. I mean, I understand it when I read it because I do it, but some people don't that way. And again, that's just very, I guess, subjective changes from a grammatical sense. Not being critical of the work done at all. I promise. Now I feel bad.
I mean, I'm guessing a lot of it's existing code. Because if you did a check on the whole thing, like chapter 1710, for example, I think Emily only changed like 3 definitions. So if it popped up anything else, it's all existing code issues.
Yeah, when I did, and for all fairness, when I do this, anytime I'm reviewing a document that somebody writes for me, I convert it from PDF to Word, and then I put the word into my vocabulary finder, and I let it tell me what it sees. And it's looking for everything from delivery to engagement to clarity, and then to correctness. And there were something like 1,600 correctness issues, and then another 1,500 or so on the other items, which are all, as I said, subjective changes, nothing that was substantive that would change the definition that you wrote. So I was hesitant to bring it up, but Chair called me out on it. So
Okay. Other commissioners?
I just had one comment that I meant to say is, I appreciate all the work that was done on this.
Mhm.
That was a ton of work. Just thank you to Emily and Kelly and anybody else that was involved. It was
Chris.
and Chris, arduous task, and kudos to everybody.
Okay, so now's the time I could.
Yeah,
ask
you had,
Okay.
did you have stuff you wanted?
Okay, actually, Jerry, Chairman Crosby already brought up 2 of the things that had stood out to me, but I just had a couple of questions really for clarification from the staff. Under sections 17.100.40, minor and major partitions. And I've got,
what page is that on?
so that is on page 5 of 28. So it's not in the order that it's, so if you go to chapter 17.38, medium density, looks like it's about halfway through the,
17 dot what?
17.38, medium density residential R2. I've got my computer over there and my handwritten documents over here,
Okay,
so
there we go.
found it.
Page 65.
Pages-
38, right there, starts on
Page
page
64, 65.
64,
Yeah. Okay.
is where it starts.
So on the next page, then on page 65, I guess my question really was, because I know we're having some changes in parking, or we've had some changes in parking, and I was just wondering if I could get some clarification about how that works with the replatting or the division into it. I was just curious, or I'm confused, I guess, as to how the parking works with when you take something and make a duplex.
You want to explain that, Emily?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Are you seeing something in 1738 specifically, or that's just a general question?
Yeah, it was a general question because there was under D11. It talked about the proposed partition or replat provides for on-street parking, off-street parking, driveway spacing, et cetera. And I just was wondering, so then how does that work with the changes that we've been making to parking?
So you can't require more off-street parking spaces for a duplex than for a single-family residential use. So it's 2. We're not changing anything about that with these code changes. And I believe that you can split the lot for the middle housing land division so that the parking could potentially be on one of the lots, and say the other duplex unit is behind on, if it's a, say, long lot and you have one up against the street and one behind, and then you could have like an easement for access to the one behind. It doesn't have to have the parking on that lot specifically. But we're not changing anything about the parking. That is just how it was with House Bill 2001. We can't treat a duplex any different than single family, and that includes parking. So
That's exactly what I was asking. Thank you, because I wasn't sure how that would work if you with curb cuts, how would that work if you did the division of the property?
yeah, so the property is still, like, the parent lot is still the parent lot. And so if we're allowed the 24-foot curb cut, like, that's what's allowed, even if you divide it, I believe.
Okay, thank you. All right. Commissioner Lee.
I'm looking at 17.100.130 easements. And that first sentence doesn't really have a verb after required was taken out. And I wondered if you meant shall be placed or shall be cited.
Commissioner Lee, can you say what section that was again? I'm just trying to put it in.
Yes, 17.100.130 easements.
Okay.
The first sentence. So I wasn't sure if you meant it shall be created or shall be cited, or when you took out required, what other verb might replace it.
Possibly the word
Not easements, yeah.
recorded.
Oh, that would be good.
I mean, would that make more sense? If
Yeah, I think that makes more sense, at least to me. It fits the paragraph well.
Yeah, I think that would actually make more sense anyways, because the AFUP public utility easements are recorded at time of creation of partition, replat, or subdivision. So that'd make more sense than required anyways.
Right. I know it's a lot to dig
It
through.
is.
It is.
I mean, did you, one thing I'll ask, I guess, is if the topic comes up about detached versus attached duplexes again, because I believe it will at city council. Does the commission have any general feelings on that? So at least that if they ask us, if they ask Emily or I at the city council hearing, if you have any thoughts about that as a commission, I think that'd be probably good to talk about for a few minutes.
So could
Because
you
I
state
think
that
it will
again?
be, I think it will be raised at the city council hearing.
Could you state that again?
Yeah, if you would like to just, what your thoughts are on detached versus attached duplexes, and if we should allow both of them or just allow, I mean, you had to allow attached duplexes, so it's basically, would you like to have the code remain as written where we allow more flexibility for attached and detached? Or would you like to get more restrictive and only allow attached duplexes? Because I do believe at least one council member, if not two, will be probably interested in exploring that more. And I think if we have some information to put in the staff report, or at least to have ready if they ask the questions regarding it, that would be helpful for staff, I believe.
Okay, I recognize Commissioner Lee.
What were the arguments as to why we shouldn't have both? Because it seems like we should have both for the flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of the argument, and I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but my understanding is that if we allow detached, that is kind of a more appealing option. And so therefore we might get more applications for middle housing or middle housing land divisions. I think the counter argument to that, at least from my perspective, would be, I think we're going to probably get them irregardless, whether they're, whether we offer more flexibility or not. And I think if we allow a detached option, to me at least, that kind of has more of the flavor or the look and appeal of a single family home. So I think it has the potential of actually looking just more like how subdivisions currently look without a bunch of attached duplexes everywhere.
Yeah, I still would be in favor of both.
Okay, Commissioner Wegener.
Yeah, I think I'd also be in favor of both. I would like to, at a time in the future, revisit or visit things like setbacks and the different regulations around that sort of thing. So that way we could hopefully make them look more like single family houses, if that's our goal. Or in the future, maybe just take a look at that so we can make it look a little bit nicer if we already have it.
All right, I see another hand up and it looks like it says Commissioner Chris Crane. I don't think that it means you. It means Chris Mayton. Is that right, Commissioner Mayton? Okay,
That's me.
nice you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just wanted to go on the record to say that I'm in favor of both as well as the previous two commissioners. I think having the availability of single detached is a good thing for us, and I would hate to see it not be available to persons moving into our city.
I will weigh in saying I would be in favor of both as well, although my caveat is unattached duplex just doesn't to me look like a duplex. I guess we're so used to say, if I see two, what makes it a duplex if there's two separate buildings? But that's neither here nor there on the question that you're asking, Kelly. I'd be in favor of both. But it's so ingrained into me that a duplex is attached. That's the way I've always seen them. So once you separate them, in my thinking, it's not a duplex anymore. But just an oddity of the word and how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the distinction for me at least is if it's all on one lot of record, then to me, whether they're attached or detached, I would consider it a duplex, just thinking kind of about
It's one owner, still one
it's
owner.
one owner and it's 2 units on one legal lot of record. I do think it gets very confusing with this middle housing land division And that's why I don't, so if it's attached and you divide it with a common lot line through middle housing land division, to me, that's, how is that different than a townhouse? And then if it's detached, then it's really two single family homes. So to me, the entire Senate Bill 458 is very confusing and how they've set it up, just to be quite honest with all of you.
I think one of the main points is what Hollis brought up, in that the parent lot remains the parent lot even after it's divided for the middle housing land division. And so anything that would apply to the parent lot in terms of setbacks or whatever still applies to the overall parent lot, even though there's now two kind of individually able to sell units. The setbacks are, are treated on the parent lot, the parking is treated on the parent lot, like all of those kinds of things are applied to the parent lot.
So the parent lot doesn't go away?
Right.
Yeah, the parent has a couple kids and they all stay together for the end of time. One big happy family.
But you have two separate lots of record when it's over with.
I think technically you have three. Isn't that correct, Chris? You have the parent lot plus the two child lots, or is it just one and one? I don't know.
I'd be willing to bet Emily's looked at this in some detail. My understanding was that it would be two lots.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's two lots and that you can sell them independently, but through the creation of them on the plat, we would note that it was done through the Senate bill. So you would know that it was sort of the one parent lot to begin with. And then, like I said, I'm pretty sure all of our code standards would have to apply to that one parent lot initially, so that once it's divided, yeah, you can sell them individually, but the standards still apply kind of. And we know that they've been divided because there's a note on the plat and now a note in the deed.
Okay, here's an example, maybe help. You have the parent lot, and let's say it has detached duplexes, and you, just for sake of argument, you split it down the middle, and you now have two separate lots. One of those houses, one of those duplexes burns to the ground, or whatever, an earthquake takes it out, and they want to rebuild. Do they look at the code that would be applicable to the parent lot, which doesn't exist anymore if there's two lots? As far as, that's kind of what Emily said, setbacks and so forth, are they applied? How's it work then when you're rebuilding on that new lot?
Don't honestly know. I don't think there's anything in the code that would exempt or preempt all the siding standards. So whatever was built there, whether we characterize it as a duplex or a single family, would still have to comply with all of the siding standards, access, setbacks, and so on.
They would be the standards applicable to
that zone.
lot.
Right. So there's Senate Bill 458. Oh, I might be thinking of 2001, but I think there's similar language in 458 that allows the city to impose siding and design standards. So whatever your siding and design standards are for the zone would apply to that replacement dwelling.
Okay.
For the zone.
Okay, that makes
So it
sense.
would be just like the same as if it was the big lot.
I would almost need to see an example. To
Yeah.
I don't want to give you the wrong answer. It's,
Mhm.
I don't know. I think some of this is a little perplexing without having examples.
Mhm.
Okay.
I did see Commissioner Pullen had her hand raised.
Yeah, she did, and then she took it down.
I did, because my question got answered. I was trying to, it was in that setback question, but as we were talking, I realized if it's 10 feet on the parent lot from, the rear setback is 10 feet, both duplexes will have a 10-foot setback on the rear. It would, it started all coming together.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Maitland.
Sorry, this is more of a clarifying question because I thought I had it right and then I got confused in that last. So we have a parent lot and we split it. Somebody can put a duplex on each of those splits, correct?
No.
Attached
No.
or detached?
No, so the original subdivision would have to be platted so that the lot that would then be divided exists, you know, so if you have just like a, you know, large lot before a subdivision, there is no lot to divide at that point. So you have the typical subdivision that has to meet all of the subdivision criteria. So if it's an SFR, it has to have a minimum of like 7,500 square feet.
Right.
Once you have that subdivision platted, then you could come and say, okay, lot 10 or whatever, we want to put a duplex on it. And that's when you would then go through the middle housing land division process. So the parent lot would have to be created first, and then you would split it. And then one of the discretionary items we discussed was whether Planning Commission and Council wanted to prohibit further division of the lots, which the consensus was yes. Because then I think we could theoretically get into the situation you're talking about where you infinitely divide them, but that's not what our code would be doing at this point, at least.
You showed a picture in your presentation that had what it looked like to be attached on one half and a detached on the back. So is that 3 units then on a single subdivision plot?
I gave an example. I showed an example from Eugene, which does allow triplexes. So it did have 3 units. We are only allowing the duplexes.
That's what I was thinking. I was hearing the words, but it wasn't meshing with the picture I saw. And
Yeah.
I forgot that you said that was from Eugene. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the better diagram honestly is the other one that Emily created that showed the 2 units and being attached or detached.
You can't split the parent lot into 2 lots and put a duplex on each
Correct.
one.
That is correct.
You would put a simplex that's a duplex.
Yeah, so if you one way to look at it is if you had a 10 lot subdivision, you could either have 10 single family homes or up to 10 duplexes, so 20 dwelling units. And then through this Senate bill, you could then divide each one of those 10 lots. So you would have 20 lots in the end, basically, with 10 parent lots and then 10 other child lots.
You have to pay the money and plat the parent lots first.
Yes, so the 10 lots for the original subdivision would be platted first. You'd go through tentative plat approval, then you'd record it over at the county and everything. And then you'd come back through and each of the other lots that you choose to then divide would be separate partitions through the middle housing land division. So, you know, in a you know, there'll be a lot of subdivisions where a lot of the lots never get split. I mean, I just guarantee it, but there will be some subdivisions where they probably do, you know, let's just say 10 lots, and then they come back through with each one of those lots into a separate partition. I could see that happening in a few places. Especially when the lots are more square. I think it's a lot easier to then do that.
So I can't remember exactly where it was, so hopefully one of you will know. But when it talked about fees, and it looked like you guys had taken the suggestions from the work group that we did to increase the fees from what originally was set out to do that partition. Did I see somewhere in this that we get to reassess that a year later? So to test and make sure that the fees are enough to cover the actual costs that are being incurred by the city? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm pretty sure that's in the Senate bill language. I would have to double check, but I think it does say that you have to kind of come back to it and make sure that
That must be right.
accurate.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we are going to be proposing fees that are slightly higher than a like partition. And the reason why is because it's, in some ways, it's going to actually be quite a bit more challenging than a like partition because of what we've just been talking about, the
Mhm.
parent, the child, all this other
Mhm.
stuff. And then the other thing is because of our expedited land review that we have to do, these then get bumped and become priorities. So
Mhm.
that, there's a couple reasons for why a slightly higher fee than a regular partition would make sense. So that's what we'll be proposing.
Okay, along with that, and I don't know if this is I don't know if this is the right place to ask this question, but when I was looking at the expedited process, how is that going to affect you in terms of staffing? Because I was like, whoa, how are they going to turn this around so
Yeah.
fast with the staff that we've got?
I think it depends how many we get. If we get 5 or 6 a year, I don't think it's really going to have that much impact overall.
Right.
But if we get 30 or 40 in the first year, yeah, that's going to have some pretty significant impact
Okay.
on our staffing ability. I mean, to be quite honest, we've been busy for a while now on current planning, but with the TSP still going and the comp plan going and all these code edits, replacing a transportation engineer that's been here for 20 years, and then getting like our public works director up and running. And it's a lot at once. Like our staff is I'll just admit, very overwhelmed. So adding more complexity, like what we're talking about tonight, if I had my preference, it would not have been done right now, but the state's mandating it. So
Okay.
we have a lot of balls up in the air right now, all at once.
Mhm.
So
I'll confirm that I just pulled up Senate Bill 458 and it does say within 1 year of setting the fee, we have to go back and review and revise it if we determine that, we have to revise it based on the actual costs. So if we're, higher or lower or whatever, we would adjust it at that point, and that is required within the first year. For the second part with the expedited land use review or land division review, we can actually, as the local government, we have to give the applicant, I think, 7 days notice, and we can then at a public hearing, change it back to the 120 days. I'm not 100% sure how that works, but it seems like, I think we have to have some sort of reason. Let's see. It has to be based on a determination that an unexpected or extraordinary increase in applications makes action within 63 days impractical. So we can push out that 63-day timeline if say an applicant comes in with 40 of these applications at once or something like that, or if we have 5 huge subdivisions that come in at once, and then and then suddenly we get a couple of these, we can also push it out. So we just have to demonstrate that wording.
See,
Okay.
so Emily's gonna know all this, and
All
we'll just
right.
rely on her to call the public hearing if we need it.
All right.
That's done by public hearing, Emily, is that what you said?
Yeah, and I think one of our questions was like, could it be anybody, could it just be the next public hearing of council or planning commission? And I think we kind of decided it makes more sense for planning commission. But I don't know, technically, like if it needed to be done quickly and the next meeting was city council, I think that the law would allow that. I don't know, Chris, if you have any knowledge on this, since it hasn't actually really happened yet.
I don't have any real insight because even though the statute's been on the books for 25 years now, I've never seen it done. I will say I must have lost the thread there because the statute, the expedited land division process at least doesn't allow for a public hearing. So there wouldn't be a public hearing for an expedited land division, including a middle.
Right.
Land division.
It's just to push out the 63-day timeline. So
Right,
not for the land division itself, but just for that timeline.
Right, so you could do your findings, that all of those things that you just read are occurring, and so it's impractical to meet the 63 days. So we could take longer, but there would not be a public hearing. There's no planning commission or city council involvement.
It says after 7 days notice to applicant, the governing body of the local government may at a regularly scheduled public meeting take action. So it wouldn't be like a hearing, they would just say that.
Right, I guess that's right.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
nobody's ever done one of these.
yeah.
We'll be the first.
I hope
The
not.
application's the first year.
Oh. Any other thoughts, questions? Commissioner Lee?
I'm just thinking that after we get through all of this, we might need a new notebook.
I think you're correct. And just so you know, Commissioner Lee, I saw your email the other day, and one of our staff members is looking into what we believe you currently have, and we believe there's a couple code systems that were updated that we never forwarded you hard copies of. So we are looking into that.
Yep.
Okay.
Things die down.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions or discussion, then I'd be looking to entertain a motion to send this on to city council. Do I hear a motion?
Right.
I will do that unless Commissioner Mayton was going to jump on it. Was that his voice?
That was me, actually.
I will go ahead and make a motion that we pass this on to city council with our approval and the 2 or 3 little suggestions that we had on some wording changes that Kelly got in the minutes. Our recommendation that they approve it with those changes.
I'll second that.
Oh, seconded by Commissioner Mayton,
Now, roll call.
and we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Sorry, hold on 1 second. Something happened to my minutes here. Okay, so the second was me. Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Commissioner Wegener,
Yes.
Commissioner Pullen,
Yes.
Commissioner McLean Wenzel,
Yes.
Commissioner Lee,
Yes,
Commissioner Mayton,
Yes,
and Chair Crosby.
Yes.
So pass it 7:59.
Pass at 7:59. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, then I entertain a motion to. close
You
the
can
meeting.
go ahead. Let me see, did we
Adjourn?
close the public hearing? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
we
You did
at
a
the
while ago,
beginning.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, you can just do an adjournment
Okay,
because that's the last thing, right?
yes.
No sense. in
That
me
was
getting
it?
back up there.
Okay, then I call this meeting adjourned. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Have a great night.
All right.
Oh.
Make sure.